Greetings, beloved, and welcome to the Sankofa Sessions Podcast, episode 1. I'm so happy to have you, and we want you to sit back, relax, as we prepare to go and fetch it, to go back into our records of our past and find the wisdom, the ancient wisdom, knowledge, and sacred truths that can help us, empower us, looking back to the future so that we can know where we're going. Because in order to know in the direction we're heading, we have to know where we come from, to instill in us the principles that's needed to sustain us as a people. So sit back tight, get your notebook, be present, and let's get started. Before time was counted, before maps were drawn, there was us, African people, born of the earth, kissed by the sun, and emerged from the source of all creation. Our ancestors lived in harmony with Creator and creation, whom they called by many names: Neteru, Olodumare, Nazambi, Ama. The source was not a foreign concept, but the very breath of all life itself, reflected in every living thing, in the rivers, in the mountains, and in our souls. Welcome, beautiful souls, to the Sankofa Sessions Podcast, episode 1. This is a sacred space and sacred time where we reclaim our ancestral wisdom. We break the chains of colonized thought, and we reconnect to our true understanding of the divine and ourselves. I'm your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Yisrael, High Priestess and spiritual leader of the Soul Awakening Sanctuary. And today, beloved family, we are on an essential journey. Today's episode is entitled Breaking the Chains, or rather, Before the Chains, Reclaiming African God Consciousness and Breaking the Illusions. Again, our title today that we'll be dealing with is Before the Chains, Reclaiming African God Consciousness and Breaking the Illusion. Now, this is just not just a conversation, it's a reckoning. It is a reclaiming of what was stolen, erased, and misrepresented and misinterpreted. As African people, those in the motherland and those in the diaspora, those of us especially throughout the diaspora, we have been told and sold lies. We've been told by Europeans that the Europeans brought us God. We were taught that they brought God to us. We have been taught that we were a godless people, barbaric, and in need of salvation. But I want to put this question: how can this be true when we are the very people who emerge from the source itself? We are the oldest ethnic group, people in the world. How can those who waged wars, enslaved nations, and destroyed civilizations claim to bring us the truth of God? Something's not right with that. So family, today, we're going deep, so sit tight, put your seatbelt on. It may get a little uncomfortable. The opinions here may be unpopular, but I'm sure that it will help you on your journey and on your spiritual evolution. Today, we'll deconstruct these false narratives, explore the spiritual truths of our ancestors, and we will be reclaiming the divine consciousness that is our birthright. Now, this session It's going to be pretty lengthy and very layered in detail. So I invite you to stay present. Have a notebook on hand. Pause when you need time to reflect and allow yourself to absorb this truth. This is just not about history or his story. This is about our records of the past. This is about liberation, mental, spiritual, and emotional. So let's begin. So baby, let's start with this. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered where this idea came from that our ancestors, the people of Africa, were godless, savages, wild, running wild in nature before the Europeans arrived? Who created this story? And more importantly, why was the story created? Think about that. See, this narrative didn't emerge from truth. Far from it. It was born from conquest. When Europeans arrived in Africa, they didn't see a lack of spirituality. No, that's incorrect. What the Europeans saw, the European invaders, when they came to the motherland, they saw a powerful people, deeply connected to the source, to the divine, to the land, to the cosmos, to their own divinity, and to themselves. And that, my friend, frightened the European invaders. To conquer us, they had to strip us of our spiritual foundation. That is how you begin to enslave a people, by moving them away from their spiritual foundation, causing them to forget their spiritual roots and who they are and how they are connected to the source and the interconnectedness of all things. To control us, they had to create and fabricate a lie that said we were godless, ignorant, and in need of their true religion. So let's be clear. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, while they each hold some universal truths, we must be honest with ourselves. They were weaponized as tools of control and oppression. When European missionaries arrived along with colonizers, they didn't come to uplift. That was the disguise. What they came for is to indoctrinate us. So when we look back through history, his story, his recall of our records of the past. So when we look through the aisles of history, we find things to support this fact that they came to indoctrinate us. We find in history the doctrine of discovery. And that is where the Catholic Church, the Pope of Rome, and might I add, Rome is still alive today. And it's alive through their king, who is the Pope, the papacy. So the Catholic Church, the Pope, gave European explorers, more like invaders, the divine right to claim lands, enslave people, and force conversions to Christianity. It was said that it is God's will for them to do so. But I ask you, what kind of God endorses genocide? What kind of God endorses enslavement? What kind of God endorses indoctrination? What kind of God endorses wiping people of their memory, their records of the past? What God endorses mothers being pulled away from their daughters, husbands ripped away from their families, children not knowing their lineage? What God endorses chattel enslavement of another people? Let that question sink in. Think about it. And then as we move further along with this through the aisles of history, we find that we got to understand the role of the missionaries. How did they play a role in our indoctrination and our enslavement? So the missionaries who came along, the European invaders, they came preaching. They preached a salvation while standing on the graves of our ancestors. They claimed that they were bringing the true God to us, but we already knew the divine. We already had a concept and an understanding of the Creator. But they just didn't understand our connection. So they preached their salvation doctrine while standing on the graves of our ancestors. They destroyed our temples, our shrines, our holy places. They burned our spiritual texts and replaced them with what we know as the Bible. Then they taught us to look outside of ourselves for a God while demonizing our connection to the divine within. Before the European invaders came and invaded Africa, our concept of the Creator, the all, the universal mind, and that not only that the divine was in us, but we were God manifested in human flesh, having a human experience. And we were a part of the Creator, the source of all that lives. That this concept of quote unquote God, the divine, the Creator, is unknown and unknowable. There are some things that you will never know. And from an African perspective, we have to and were respective of that. That the Creator is unknown and unknowable. So these are the things that they taught us. That instead of knowing that you were God, having a human experience, the divine was within us. We were connected to the source. They taught us to look outward for God somewhere in the sky. Sky daddies. Let me share this quote with you from a historian, Chen Rizu. And this is what he said. It's a powerful quote. He said, to conquer a people, you must first conquer their minds. Think about that. To conquer a people, you must first conquer their mind. So religion became the tool to conquer African minds. They gave us a God who looked like them, spoke like them, and demanded obedience. That's powerful. So I want you to think about this. Every nationality, every country, every continent, every land, every ethnic group and people, they have their own concept of God or the Creator. They have their own creation story. And their God or their divine deities all look like them. The Chinese have the Chinese God, and it looks like them. The European have their God, and it looks like them. The blue eye, blonde hair, frail looking man called Jesus. Then you have the Indian. They have their God that looks like them. Every nationality, every ethnic group. But when we come to Africa, they were forced to accept a God that looks like someone else, not like them. That demanded us to obey. And many people today have a God complex. They have a God image in their mind that don't look like them. You know, a lot of time people tell me, yeah, we all know that Jesus was black. But it don't matter. It don't matter if he was black or white. It should matter to you. It should matter to you what landmass is. Because if he existed and came to the womb of a woman, meaning he had a mother and father. He was born somewhere, a continent. So that means he had a nationality. That means he had a language. That means he had a specific skin complexion. He had a family. He had a lineage. And so try to say, oh, none of that matters, shows cognitive dissonance within us. So no African in the motherland or the diaspora should be worshiping a God that does not look like them. When you look at some of these Bibles, especially the older Bible, when you look, the angels are white, God is white, Jesus is white. When you look at the different, on the glass windows in churches, everybody's white, Mary's white, Joseph is white. When you look at the movies of Egypt and Moses is white. The Pharaoh is white, the Egyptian is white, the Israelites are white. Whitewashing, causing us to impress on our psyche that white is right, black is wrong. So these are the things we have to contend with when we facing the facts that we're moving from childhood to maturity to really understand what's going on, what has happened to us, and where the state we're in, how did we get here, and what we need to do to get out of it. So in Decolonize, these are things we have to address. These are things we have to look at, and look at it truthfully. Be willing to get in the trenches and really find out what's really going on. Not what we've been told, because what we've been told in the history books, so-called, what we've been taught in school is not accurate. It's been whitewashed, it's been tainted. So it's our responsibility to do the digging and find out the truth for ourselves, not just accepting what we've been told. Family, when we accepted these foreign religions as truth, we began to see ourselves through a distorted lens. We began to internalize inferiority because we accepted these outside foreign religions as truth. We internalize inferiority. Then we begin to reject our ancestors. And we called our spiritual traditions evil and pagan. See, that's how you get people to move away from their spiritual heritage that empowers them. You begin to make them believe that their spiritual tradition, their spiritual heritage and roots is evil and pagan. Many of our people, our melanated people, will not even turn back and look and research and try to understand what is called African spirituality. Why? Because Europeans have labeled it as evil, have labeled it as wrong, has labeled it as a pagan practice and demonized it. They demonize you lighting candles while they light candles in the church, in the Catholic Church. They demonize us kneeling before a tree or kneeling before the water. And when they came and saw us kneeling before the water, kneeling before the tree, then they interpreted and said, oh, they're worshiping the trees, they're worshiping the animal, they're worshiping the water. Not having an understanding before we partook in waters, before we cut down a tree, before we took the life of an animal. We spoke to the wind, the air, the elements, the water, the tree. Because the Creator is in everything. Asking permission before we go and do that. But they interpreted it as that we were worshiping. So they called that evil and pagan. However, they kneel down to statues and pray. Now tell me which one is barbaric. Water has life in it. A tree has life in it. The animal has life in it. But carvings of stone, of brick and mortar, they bow down and worship it, which has no life, cannot speak, cannot hear, cannot communicate. But this is what the spell we have been under. We've been duped. We've been told and caused to look at our heritage as evil and pagan, and their heritage as holy and supreme and right. But let me ask this question. Let me ask you this. Who were we before the Bible? Think about it. Who were we before they brought the Bible to us? Who were we before they brought the Quran to us? Who were we before they brought the Torah to us? Because the African people predates Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. We predate the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah. So what were we before that? Were we not already spiritual? Were we not already divine? Did not we already have a connection to the Creator? And if that is so, why are we afraid to reconnect with our ancestry? Why are we afraid to reconnect with the truth about ourselves and our records of the past? Our spiritual roots that empower us, that is passed down to empower us to be who we've been called to be as people of the sun. Why are we afraid to reconnect and leave that which no longer serves us? Because we are not in the Pisces age, and that's what Christianity was, in the Pisces age, the believing age of Christianity. Every age has its own theme. Now we're in the age of Aquarius, the age of knowledge, of knowing, not believing. We're not in the business of believing. We're in the business of knowing, of knowledge, of advancement. So when are we going to align ourselves with what time it truly is? Think about it. Long before the European invaders came to our homeland, our ancestors understood God. They understood God not as a man in the sky somewhere that's watching everything you say and everything you do to punish you. But our ancestors understood the God concept as the creative force behind all life and all existence. In Kemet, which is called ancient Egypt, our ancestors spoke of Neteru, the principles and forces of creation. And Yoruba, our ancestors called on Olodumare, the supreme creator. In the Congo, our ancestors honored Nazumbi Mapungu. Every country, every land and people on the continent of Africa, every tribe, every group, they all had a concept, a God consciousness. Our ancestors didn't need a book. They didn't need preachers or a priest to tell them about the divine, the creator, God. We look to the rivers, the mountains, the stars, the animals, the plants. And when we looked at them, we knew, we understood that the divine was everywhere, not on the throne in the sky. Even when we take a look at the concept of Ma'at and Kemet, Ma'at represents balance, truth, and harmony. Many times you will hear me speak about Ma'at a lot because truth, balance, and cosmic order is important to all life, to our continuity, to our progress. You must have Ma'at, the principle of balance, truth, harmony, cosmic order. So our ancestors knew that to live in alignment with Ma'at was to live in alignment with the Creator. See, we knew that. And so it's important. Here's a key, family. It's important that we understand that we are a spiritual people, not a religious people. When we begin to research and find out about our ancestral roots as people from Africa, the continent, we were never a religious people, but a spiritual people. And spirituality is about connection to the divine, to the Creator, to nature, to each other. That's what spirituality is all about. Spirituality is when you eat. Spirituality is when you drink. Spirituality is when you're in nature. Spirituality is when you commune with your family and each other. It's not about religious practices, doctrines, and dogma. It's a stark difference between spirituality and religion. And we have to understand that we're not a religious people, but a spiritual people. Spirituality is about living in harmony with the universal laws. Religion, on the other hand, is man-made. It's structured. It's hierarchical. And oftentimes is oppressive, especially to women. Now, we won't even jump on that topic today. We'll deal with that another time. But it's about living in harmony with the universal laws that can't be broken. Spirituality liberates, religion binds. And that's what you have to understand. Any practice, doctrine, dogma that constrict, it is religion and not spirituality. So as we understand what we've been talking about, you may say to yourself, what do I do from here? Where do I go? I found out that I've been lied to all of my life, that we've been indoctrinated from birth. Think about it. We've been indoctrinated from birth into a practice and religion that is foreign to our people. I was thinking about this the other day. and maybe it can help you. That melanated people, through the diaspora and the homeland, we have been duped into trying to live up to a moral code, a moral standard given to us by another people, that even the people that gave us the moral code don't live up to. I'm going to say that again. We have been coerced, forced, indoctrinated to accept and believe and buy into a moral code given to us by another people, invaders, conquerors, giving their moral code to us to live by the same moral code they do not live by. Think about it. If you look in, especially in the diaspora, melanated people in other places in the world, whatever indoctrination we got during chattel enslavement, we, for the most majority, we have kept on those traditions in our family, in our lineage, up until this day. Don't believe it? Go to Louisiana, where Rome had set its sights and where Catholicism took root. And many of melanated people that find themselves born in Louisiana doing chattel enslavement and their lineage, now, guess what? They have some type of connection still to the Roman Catholic Church. If you go down south, the other way, and go to South Carolina, where Catholicism was not as big of a root, but it was Baptist, Methodist. You will find a lot in the majority, and also AME, which is a part of Methodism. You will find a lot of melanated people that their ancestors during chattel enslavement were enslaved by people who were Baptists, who were Methodists. And so they took on those different denominations in understanding of Christianity from their imprisoners. And so afterwards, they had been entrenched, indoctrinated, whipped, beaten, this thing into them, this belief system that was foreign to them. So that now, after chattel enslavement, the chains are still on the mind. And so this is the only thing they know. And so they begin to practice variations in their own way. But still, you will find most of the descendants yet Baptists, Methodists, in the South Carolina Low Country area. Mixed with a little Pentecostal and, all of that. So we have been indoctrinated. And so we have to begin to think about, what were we before this? What was our understanding before this? Because melanated people have to understand this. Our heritage, our records of the past did not begin with chattel enslavement. Use, for example, Kemet, known as ancient Egypt, had 4 golden years, 4 golden eras, where the Europeans and other places only had 1. have to begin to research and go back and find out, how were we, our glory, us in our authentic state before the invaders? Find out, what were we doing? What was our spirituality? What was our understanding? How did we live? That we had kings, pharaohs, leaders, armies, all of this long before the invader came. Civilization long before the invaders came. Everybody in the world came to Kemet and to those around the Nile Valley, the Nile River, to learn. They came to the temples. They came to learn and to understand and be initiated into the ancient mystery school systems, to understand and find out about the cosmos, to learn science, to learn about spirituality. And we taught all of our knowledge to them. So many of the knowledge and spiritual wisdom that they're trying to give back to us in a different form, we had taught them, but we've forgotten that we taught them. We forgot our ancestors were the first. And so the knowledge, all of them, when you go and research every philosopher of antiquity, from the Greeks to the Romans, to the Persians, all around the world, they all came to Kemet and to those around the Nile River to learn. We were doing brain surgery long before the invaders came. Building pyramids long before the invaders came. So this is what we have to begin to deprogram and recondition our mind with truth. We've been taught a false sense and a false narrative. And so we have to be willing to do the work to begin to let go of those false narratives. Those things that we were taught. Practices. Because these practices are to empower us, not to harm us. So the first thing that we should do, because you may say, well, what do I do from here? Where do I go from here? The first thing we need to begin to do is retrace our steps. Study our spiritual traditions prior to invaders. Prior to colonialism, what was our spiritual traditions? So give you an example. Begin to learn about Kemet. Begin to learn about the Kemetic philosophy and their understanding of spirituality. Begin to study the Bantu philosophy. Because many of us through the South, especially the Gullah Geechee, came from South Africa, our ancestors. So begin to learn about the Bantu philosophy. For there are where the Kemet came from, the Bantu people. So begin to study Kemet. Begin to study the Bantu philosophy. Study Ifa, Voodoo. Study all different, and the Hoodoo, which our people was a creation here in the Americas. We will merge things, our understanding of herbs, spirituality. It was a part of our heritage from those that were enslaved in America. And begin to study other African systems. Begin to reclaim what was stolen from you. Because the stuff that you have adopted or were forced to adopt is not yours. Give it back to them. Give it back to them. That is theirs. And begin to relearn, reacclimate yourself, and reclaim what was stolen from you, what was told was evil, what was told was pagan from you. Because people only demonize something. Why? To separate you from it, because it's your spiritual power source. And they don't want you to be connected to what is for you so that you can be empowered. So they demonize it, put slurs on it so that you'll stay away from it. And so the first thing is retracing the steps, studying our spiritual traditions. Second thing is to challenge the lie. Begin to question the narratives you've been taught. Question everything you've been taught in school, in history, in geography, about your records of the past. Begin to question it. The theologies, the ideologies that you've been taught and indoctrinated with. Begin to question it. Nothing is above question. Even questioning your concept of God. If your questioning of God in any religion is an offense to that God or deity, it's not worth being a part of or worshiping. So question the narratives you've been taught. Was these narratives that you've been taught and indoctrinated with, were they the intent, or were they ever meant to empower you? Or were they meant to ensnare you, to cause you to forget your true identity and authenticity? So first, study your spirit, retrace your steps, study our spiritual tradition. Second, challenge the lie, challenge the narratives you've been taught. And third, begin to reconnect with nature. Because guess what? We are sun people, kissed by the sun. We are recharged by nature, by being out in the sun. We are recharged by being out in nature. Why? Because we have been made a part of this nature. We emerged from earth. So we have to be put back in there. Take nature walks. Spend time in creation. Listen, sit and meditate in nature. And hear the divine whispers that the infinite intelligence will speak to you. And the fourth step, first, retrace your steps. Learn about and study our spiritual traditions. 2, challenge the lies and the narratives that we've been taught. 3, reconnect with nature, spend time in nature, recharge yourself. And 4, honor your ancestors. Honor your ancestors. They are our bridge to the Creator. They have already gone over to the ancestral realm, to the spirit world. Honor your ancestors. Remember, you're 33 part your mother, 33 part your father, 33 part yourself. And in that part of your mother, you have your mother's father. And your mother's mother. And you have her mother and their father and great-grand, on and on. And on your father's part, you have his mother, his father, and their father, their mother, their great-grand, on and on. And then you have in you your unborn children, that you will be a part of that. So you are your ancestors are you. You are a part of them. They brought forth so you can come forth. So you must honor them. honoring your mother and your father so your days may be long upon the land of earth, is not just while they live, but also when they move on and transition to the ancestral realm. We're not talking about ancestor worship. There is no concept in the Africa continent and among our people about ancestor worship. So forget that. Ancestor worship, the concept comes from Europeans trying and misinterpreting, misrepresenting, and trying to speak to what they saw, which they did not understand. So let's start there. We're not talking about worshiping our ancestors. You're not worshiping yourself because you're your ancestor and your ancestors are you. You're one. You're a part of them. So we're not talking about ancestor worship. We're talking about honoring your ancestors. Ancestor veneration. Paying homage. What do you think you do when you go to the grave and put flowers on your mother's grave, on your father's grave, on your grandparents' grave? What do you think you're doing? Ancestor. Honoring your ancestors. When you're cooking a dish in the kitchen, using your mother's recipe who's gone on, and thinking about the memories and smelling the savory things that she used to cook for you, and feeling gratitude and appreciation in your heart for her hard-earned work that she did to lay the foundation for you. What do you think that is? It is honoring your ancestor. When you bake a pie or bread pudding or whatever the case that your grandmother taught you how to make, and you remember all of the good times that you spent with her growing up, and you feel gratitude in your heart and you're thankful and you say, oh, I miss you, grandmother. What do you think you're doing? It is honoring your ancestors, ancestor veneration. And this is one, especially for a lot of people of melanated people. I don't like to really use the word people of color because color, when you begin to research that, color mean is something that doesn't exist. So, but melanated people in the African diaspora, many of us, especially in the South, grew up with this practice that they would collect obituaries. And some people would have a particular table in their house. Think about it, in your grandparents, your great-grandparents' house, they have a table where they have pictures of all those that have gone on. Their mother, their grandmother, their great-grandparents, their children that may have passed on. Or they may have a wall of memory with all the pictures and speak about them and point to them. And then you have candy on that table. Candy that their mother used to like. Or candy their grandfather used to like. Or tobacco their grandfather used to chew. Or play a certain music around that table that their mother or grandparents used to play. Or next to it, the piano that belonged to their great mothers. All of this is honoring your ancestors. And there's nothing evil about it. There's nothing pagan about it. The Jews do it when they pray. They say to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're calling the names of their ancestors to their understanding. Everybody else does it. Why is it that we now think that calling forth the name of your ancestors is a pagan worship? It is evil. It is demonic. Or some people have the notion, oh, I don't deal with my ancestors, or I don't deal with them. That's evil spirits. How can they be evil spirits? When they were good people, loving people, kind people, holy people while they lived on earth. How in the world did they turn evil now that they've gone to the other side? Think about it. These are critical thinking. Our mind has been colonized to think that wrong is right and that right is wrong. And we have to wake up from this illusion. Wake up and break the chains. You cannot look for your invaders. You cannot look for those who have conquered you and enslaved you and abused you. You cannot look to your abuser to teach you the truth. You cannot look to your abuser and your oppressor to speak truth to you. You cannot look to your oppressor to tell you about your heritage. You cannot look to your oppressors to teach you about your own identity. You must look backwards. This is what Sankofa is all about. You must look backwards. To go and fetch it. Go fetch your history. Go fetch your knowledge. Go fetch your ancestral wisdom. Your sacred knowledge. When you look at all the philosophers of antiquity, they all tell you that they studied in Egypt. Pythagoras and all of it, they all say how they went to Egypt and they learned. But you've been taught not to go and learn. That what you was doing before Christianity came along, before Islam came along, before Judaism came along, that it was pagan. You were taught that it was evil. And so people have this understanding that God used the oppressor to bring them the truth. What kind of God would use your enslaver, your conqueror, your oppressor to then teach you truth? What kind of cruel, sick God would do that? And a lot of time, we're not thinking. We have so many of our melanated brothers and sisters. They have a black church. They got a black preacher. I say this over and over again, but I'm going to keep saying it until it gets in somebody's head. We got a black church, a black preacher, black members, and a European white theology. There's not a black theology. It's not a black Christology. It's not a teaching of empowerment for people of color or melanated people, people of African descent. Any practice that you engage in should empower you, not demoralize you, not cause you to feel inferior, not to feel that you were born as a sinner. See, that's the first mistake we bought into, that we were born in sin and shaped in iniquity. That's the first mistake. Because why would the Creator create something? Why did the all, the source of all things, create something that's a sinner? Because then you have to understand and break down, well, what is sin? Who has the right to call it sin? And you say, oh, well, the Bible says sin. Who wrote the Bible? Where that came from? Oh, it was inspired by God. Well, the artist is inspired. Musicians are inspired. Authors are inspired. Playwrights, Movie writers are inspired. And where do you think the inspiration comes from? It comes from the divine. That don't mean that it's infallible. That doesn't mean that it's without error. It does not mean that it came from a holy source. Because the source of all things, the creative force, the universal mind, God by all names known, has no special people. See, the problem is that we have then turned the creator of the universe, the creative force, that energy, and turned it into a man and applied to it human petty emotions. How can the divine, the creator of all things, have petty emotions like humans? Be jealous, be angry, have tantrums, acting like it's schizophrenic. One time it likes you, one time it don't. One say it love you, then it say divorce you. Come on, let's think about this thing. Let's really dissect this thing. Where are we getting these concepts from? And does it make any sense? Does it empower you as a person of African descent? Or is it degrading you? Let's use this for example. The Europeans then say you should only have one wife. You can't have more than one. Now, I'm not saying that I'm trying to promote polygamy. I'm not trying to promote that at all. But I'm trying to point out something. They say, oh, you can only have one spouse. You can only have one wife. You can't have more than one. Or you can't have more than one husband, or whatever the case. However, when you look in that same Bible that they brought to us, Abraham had more than one wife. Solomon had more than one wife. David had more than one wife. And these men, they preach about the most. Think about it. But now you turn around and say, no, you can't have more than one wife. When the patriarchs of your religion had more than one wife. And it said that they pleased God. And they were honorable in God's sight. When are we going to let the light on? Come on and think. Even in Judaism, practice polygamy. The Ashkenazis, they first stopped. But the Sephardic, those of them called the Mediterranean, were still practicing it. But by the pressures of society and the Christians in which they lived around, spouting around that they had a higher moral standard, they gave in. And the rabbis and the sages of that time forbid the people to have more than one wife. But think about it. Really begin to question the things that we've heard, the things that we've been taught. How can, let's talk about this idea of Jesus, this Jesus concept. Now, we're not going to deal with his validity and if it's real or not. Let's just suppose. This whole idea. How did he leave Africa, black, but came back white, European, blonde hair, blue eyes? How does that make sense? Think about it. And by internalizing that image in us, we begin to want to emulate that. Because God is white, Jesus is white, his mother is white, his father is white. So then I must want to be like that. But even in the Bible it said that his hair was wool, feet like bronze. Talk about his complexion. But yet you say it doesn't matter. Cognitive dissonance. Things don't line up. But yet we try to reason it in our minds to make it true. To make it more palatable. It's time to wake up. It's time to see things for what it is. Yes, we've been lied to. Yes, we've been hoodwinked and bamboozled. But guess what? That doesn't have to be the end of our story. We can rise again by acquainting ourselves with our heritage and peeling back the layers of the onions of colonization. So remember, first step one, the actionable step we can take to return to our birthright is study our spiritual traditions, challenge the lies, reconnect with nature, and honor your ancestors. They are the bridge to the Creator. Light candles in their honor. Pour libation. Pouring libation is one of the oldest spiritual traditions known to man. And in memory, as they pour libation, you pour water or wine or whatever the case on the ground. In memory, calling forth their name to remember them. Even people, a lot of people, even in America, melanated people, they don't even know why they do it, but when they drinking, when they drinking buddies, and they say, think about one of them that used to be amongst them that's now deceased, what they do? They pull a little drink out on the ground. Why do they do, not even having a clue why they do it, but it is a part of within their genetic code, their memory, it's a memory. Rather, consciously they don't remember, but it is within them. The spiritual tradition of pouring libation, calling their names out, so that their memory will live on. So let's stop demonizing what our ancestors gave to us, what we have forgotten, and begin to embrace that which is meant to empower us. Family, the time has come to remember. The time is now. It's time to reclaim. It's time to rise. We were never lost. That's something to know. We were never lost. We were misled. But now is time, the high time, with clear eyes and an open heart, to return to the truth, to return to who you are. I thank you for being here. This has been Sankofa Sessions Podcast. And together we are reclaiming our divine truth. We're going and fetching it. We're going back to get what is rightfully ours, our knowledge, our truth, our wisdom. And I'm your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Yisrael, High Priestess and Spiritual Leader of the Soul Awakening Sanctuary, where our aim is to expand the consciousness of the masses. And we do that through teaching universal laws and spiritual truth, helping us to reclaim who we are, our authenticity. If you would like to give to our platform and to support and help us to continue to further our purpose, you can do so through Cash App. And it is capital VSY, lowercase ISRAEL 2021. Again, if you'd like to donate to our platform and to help us further our mission and our truth, teaching these truths and these wonderful understanding of ourselves, you can do so through Cash App, and it is capital VSY, lowercase ISRAEL 2021. And we thank you for your donations and your gifts. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe to this channel so that you can keep getting sacred wisdom, ancient wisdom, sacred knowledge, and the tools so that you can keep working on the Temple of Solomon, which is a metaphor for your own spiritual house within. And until next time, remember that you are divine. You are powerful. You are a manifestation of the divine, infinite intelligence and creative force itself. And never let any ideology, any theology, any person, negative opinions or anything cause you to forget again who you truly are, your authentic self. You are God, manifested in flesh, having a human experience. And you are connected to the creative force that created all things. And that your creator, the universal mind, God by all names known, loves you. And the presence of the divine, God in me, loves the presence of the divine God in you. Until next time, walk in truth, walk in power, and walk in freedom and liberation. Ashe, amen, and ashe. We love you. Peace be with you.